them now and again.
Okay, everyone. So I just wanted to run by you a concept that I picked up on with respect to the elections. I'll explain how that works out. And it's called the concept of KayFabe, KayFabe. And it originates from professional wrestling. And the idea of kayfabe is that it's a presentation of something that is basically a fabrication or a fable as absolute truth. And in a certain sense, the everybody knows this is kind of a fable, but they kind of go along with it. And so in many ways, our election system can fall into this category. And I'll show you a specific example of how the just one small little thing with these drop boxes is really a perfect kayfabe. But first, I want to I want Eric Weinstein to define this for you. So, Eric, shoot, fire away, Eric.
And you've described this as kayfabe in the past. For
Right.
people who, can you explain what that is to people who've maybe not heard that term?
Sure. I think one of the problems is that we don't have good language for dealing with multi-layered deception. And the two places that I thought had pretty good language were the intelligence community and professional wrestling. So professional wrestling was the easier, it's hard to get spooks to give up their secrets. So what I did is I started to look into professional wrestling and what are all of the terms that they have to maintain to keep track what the actual storylines are, what the simulated storyline. Sometimes you have a simulated storyline that apparently breaks into actual reality, or like you're breaking the fourth wall, but it's actually a controlled structure where you're still in a fake story. So they call things that are fake works, and they call things that are real shoots. So a worked shoot is actually something that is set inside of a fake storyline, is apparently real and breaks the fourth wall, but is in fact fake. So you're talking about tertiary and eventually quaternary levels of deception. I don't think the human mind can do much more than 4 layers of lying. But kayfabe is the organized structure of lies that undergirds professional wrestling, and it.
Okay, so that's good. I mean, the organized structure of lies that undergirds the basic fake system. Now, here's another little bit more flamboyant explanation of this, which is really worth listening to. Hang on a second.
Kayfabe really revolves around is keeping the audience's suspension of disbelief intact. Let them think the fights are real. Let them think that the guy who lost the "you're fired" match is actually fired.
You're fired!
Let them think that the manager with the Russian accent isn't an actress/model from Florida. The idea of kayfabe was first documented in the book Fall Guys, The Barnums of Bounce by Marcus Griffin back in 1937. While the book doesn't specifically use that term, it does document the concept, as Griffin learned the ins and outs of wrestling and gave readers an insight into the business. But where does the actual term come from? We're unsure, as there seems to be more lore around it more than anything else. Some say it's named after a mute wrestler named KayFabian. Some say it's Pig Latin for be fake. There's even a theory that it derived from the Latin word cavio, which means to be on guard against. Kayfabe is all about making the people believe what's happening in the ring is genuine. Think about.
Okay, great. So, how does this relate to our issue of the drop boxes? And let me just explain that according to the county clerk and the Secretary of State, the 24-hour drop boxes are. This is from the county's website. It says they are safe and a secure way to return your ballot. Here's why. 1, they're designed to be tamper-proof. And 2, they are under 24-hour surveillance during election periods. So you think, wow, what could possibly go wrong with these tamper-proof boxes that are being carefully monitored and surveilled by the county? This is just just anything to the contrary is just election disinformation. Well, you see, that in the language of professional wrestling, that is the work. That is what they're putting out there for you to believe. But the actual the shoot is this. In other words, this is the truth of the matter, right? And that is that according to, let me just bring up the, here it is. So, okay, just quickly going through this again. The work is that all the boxes are legislated. They must follow the security rules of the Secretary of State, and the Secretary of State has got to promulgate rules that will enable the county clerks, who are the chief election officers of the counties, to spot the violations of the Colorado election codes, which is the dropping off of more than 10 ballots, or violating any of the prohibitions of Title 13 of the code. And so the district attorney is going to investigate. It's a crime to fail to enforce these laws. And so his prohibitions against tampering, interfering with voting, impeding free exercise. I mean, these boxes, everything is fantastic. And then the Secretary of State's, the work goes on to say, the Secretary of State's rules, so the boxes must be adequately lighted, and they must use a video security surveillance system. And so you think that, well, this is really, I mean, what the video security surveillance system, that sounds like a really high-tech thing. And so the rules go on to say they must be, the system must be motion activated, they must be monitored whenever they're open, and both drop slots and containers are to be monitored, and the clerk must report any violations to the district attorney. All right, now, so that's the work. That's what they want you to believe. But the shoot, the reality of the situation is this. According to they say they must be, the rules say they must be under a video security surveillance system as defined in the rules. All right, then you go down. Here is, according to the Secretary of State, right here, this is how she defines the video security surveillance system. And she thinks that this is their out, because what it says is a video security surveillance system means video monitoring by a device that continuously records a designated location or system using motion detection that records 1 frame or more per minute until detection of motion triggers continuous recording. So basically that's saying that these cameras, these devices, they either must continuously record a designated location or they have to be motion activated. And so I happen to know the county clerk, the district attorney, I think the county attorney, and we'll find out when they respond to us, but they believe that this simply says that video security surveillance, all it has to do to meet the definition of Rule 1161, which is the definitions, it simply has to be a device that's motion activated or turns on. They say, well, this doesn't say anything about resolution or any particular ability of the system to give you evidence. It just has to turn on. So I think that what the clerk is arguing, and the Secretary of State, is that they, on one hand, they provided the work that these systems are 24-hour under 24-hour surveillance, which sounds really secure, but in reality, they have provided I guess it's called a worked shoot, a fake definition, which gives them an out, saying that by our definition of video security surveillance, it just means the device has to turn on, that's a pretty low bar indeed. Now, let me show you the let's see now, the other thing is they're designed to be tamper proof. Okay, so let's just look at that for a second here. Here is some pictures of these drop boxes. Now this is there's two kinds of drop boxes. There's the white ones and the silver ones. So these are there's a white one, another white one. Here's one at at Avery Brewing. This is the silver one. Now the silver ones, this one's locked, but it actually has a fairly small slot there behind this locked door. There's a few of those around, but the majority of the drop boxes are these white models. Let me just show. All right, so here's the white model, and you see that slot? That's a good inch or inch and a quarter high. You could probably put 25 ballots through there at one time. So, and more than that, if you had a mind to do so, if you were a wicked individual, malicious fellow, you could put a plastic tube down there and dump a gallon or so of, I don't know, motor oil, hot water, anything that would destroy the ballots. And you could do that in just a matter of minutes because that slot is so huge. So, in other words, on paper they're saying these boxes are all tamper-proof, but in reality, they are not tamper-proof. On paper, they say they are under 24-hour surveillance, but in reality, they are not being surveilled because, according to I've already gone through with exhausting detail why these boxes are not being surveilled at all. Here's one. Is that a well-lit drop box? Or I've been through this. None of these things are able to recognize and hear what's going on at the boxes. So, by the normal definition as used by the industry, right? According to the industry, surveillance is not just cameras, but is a holistic ecosystem combining hardware, software, and procedures to provide situational awareness and evidence for decision making. This is a very good and tight definition of what a professional video security surveillance system is. But according to the Secretary of State, it's basically could be argued that it's anything that just turns on, except for one thing that I don't think she may have missed, because they still require monitoring. So these surveillance systems are still video. It means a video monitoring system, and she did not provide a separate definition for what monitoring is. Okay, so that means you got to go and look it up in the dictionary. And if you look it up in the dictionary, here's the definition from the Random House Dictionary. A device or arrangement for observing and recording the operation, observing and recording the operation, to observe, record, and detect. That's important. These things must be capable of detecting what? The violations of the election law. Or finally, to observe critically, to oversee and supervise. So the video systems, as soon as she said they're video monitoring, and she didn't redefine monitoring as just the ability to capture shadowy figures with no resolution. That means they've got to be going by the generally accepted definition for what monitoring is, which is critical observation, overseeing, and supervising. So basically, that's my point, that we are basically being, when we look at the election laws and the election system, and we're just focusing on the drop boxes, we're still being confronted with what has to be classified as a KayFabe, which is basically it's a fabricated system that's being presented as real. And there's all kinds of little works in there, redefining what video security is, et cetera, et cetera. So think about that. And this does not simply go to Dropbox security. You can take the same idea and look at the entire election system. I mean, from nomination of candidates to elections to vote counting to Dominion voting machines, you name it. It can go right up to war and peace. So think about that, and just keep in. To be forewarned is to be forearmed. And so when you're looking at this stuff, remember you may be looking at basically a clown show. So don't fall for it. So thank you very much. Let's see now.